It was a beautiful summer evening in July 2014, the kind of night meant for family bonding, laughter, and celebration. But for Daniel Wright, the evening held a much darker purpose. As the family gathered for their annual reunion in Huntsville, Alabama, no one suspected that this night would mark the end of his marriage and the public shaming of his wife, Amanda. In the early months of 2014, Daniel Wright's life appeared to be everything he had worked for: a successful career, a stable home, and a marriage that had stood the test of time for over 15 years. As a manager in a tech company, Daniel had built a life filled with structure and order, the very foundations he believed would keep his family secure. His dedication to his work had always been intense, spending long hours at the office, climbing the corporate ladder to provide for his wife Amanda and their 2 children. He had never imagined that this very dedication, this pursuit of success, would one day leave cracks in the life he had so carefully built. Amanda Wright, 4 years younger than Daniel, was a devoted stay-at-home mother who had, for years, balanced the responsibilities of raising their children and maintaining the household. She was once the center of attention in Daniel's life, but as his career demands grew, Amanda found herself feeling isolated. In the quiet moments between school drop-offs, errands, and the endless routines of motherhood, Amanda began to feel invisible. The attention she craved, the companionship she longed for, seemed to disappear as Daniel's work consumed him. By 2012, she had fallen into a routine that felt like a prison, one where her beauty, energy, and zest for life were overshadowed by Daniel's long absences and the everyday grind of family life. By 2013, Amanda had discovered a new outlet: fitness. She began attending the local gym regularly, reclaiming a piece of her identity through health and wellness. It was here that she met Jake Stevens, a 30-year-old personal trainer full of energy and charm. Jake was everything Daniel wasn't. He was youthful, spontaneous, and attentive. Amanda started training with him several times a week, and before long, she found herself confiding in him, sharing details about her struggles at home. Jake, in turn, made Amanda feel seen, admired even. Their connection grew deeper with every session, and before she could fully comprehend it, Amanda was wrapped up in an emotional and physical affair. At first, the affair was a thrilling escape for Amanda. It gave her a sense of freedom, a chance to step outside the boundaries of her predictable life. But as months went by, the weight of her secret began to take a toll. Amanda had always been known for her dedication to her family, and the affair became a growing source of guilt. Her love for Daniel and the life they had built together had not disappeared, but she could not let go of the emotional connection she had developed with Jake. The more entangled she became, the more distant she grew from Daniel, and he, absorbed in his work, remained largely oblivious until early 2014. It was late in May when Daniel first started to notice the shift in Amanda. Their once simple and comfortable routines had become disrupted. She had grown increasingly protective of her phone, taking it with her everywhere, something she had never done before. She was always texting, and Daniel noticed that her gym sessions had started to extend longer than usual. Small moments of Amanda's absence began to pile up, and though Daniel tried to push his growing suspicions aside, the feeling that something wasn't right became too powerful to ignore. Daniel wasn't the kind of man to act on impulse. He had always prided himself on his ability to think rationally to analyze situations before reacting. But with Amanda, something had shifted inside him. He had never imagined that his wife, the woman he had trusted and loved for over 15 years, would betray him in such a way. The emotional distance between them was growing daily, and though they never fought or argued, the silence between them was deafening. One evening, as Amanda lay asleep beside him, Daniel found himself staring at her phone on the nightstand. She had fallen asleep with it clutched tightly in her hand, a habit that had become increasingly common over the past few weeks. That night, after Amanda's breathing grew steady, Daniel reached for her phone, his heart pounding. He knew this was the moment that could either confirm or erase all his doubts. What Daniel uncovered shattered him. In a series of messages, he saw the truth laid bare in front of him. The messages between Amanda and Jake were explicit, the photos even more revealing. As he scrolled through the texts, Daniel's hands shook. There was no mistaking what was happening. His wife had been having an affair, one that was far more than just a fleeting connection. The reality of Amanda's betrayal settled over him like a heavy weight. In those first moments, Daniel's mind raced. He thought about the years they had spent together, their wedding day in 1999, the birth of their children, the life they had built. It was as if every memory, every moment of happiness, had been tainted by the discovery of Amanda's infidelity. But instead of confronting her right then, instead of waking her up in a rage, Daniel chose a different path. His anger turned cold, calculated. He wanted more than just an explanation. He wanted Amanda to feel the same humiliation and betrayal that she had caused him. In the weeks that followed Daniel's discovery of Amanda's affair, his life became a series of calculated decisions, each move more deliberate than the last. What started as an emotional shock, a gut-wrenching blow to the life he thought he had, soon turned into something darker. His grief turned into an obsession not to save the marriage, but to make Amanda feel the same pain, the same betrayal that had consumed him. He no longer saw her as the woman he had loved for over 15 years. To Daniel, Amanda had become a stranger, someone capable of ripping apart their life without a second thought. Daniel began following her. He knew her routine well, the times she went to the gym, the time she would be with Jake, pretending it was just another session. But Daniel knew better now. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Amanda would leave the house dressed in her gym clothes with a small duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Daniel would wait for her to leave before quietly slipping out of the house himself, careful not to arouse suspicion. He would park a few blocks away from Jake's private training studio, far enough not to be noticed, but close enough to observe her movements. At first he only caught glimpses, Amanda and Jake exchanging smiles, standing too close together, walking into the studio side by side. But as the weeks passed, Daniel began to see more, enough to confirm that their relationship went far beyond personal training. There were moments when he saw them embrace in the parking lot, Amanda glancing around nervously before leaning in to kiss Jake. Daniel's blood boiled, but he kept his distance. His anger was now a cold, quiet thing, something that sat deep inside him, pushing him toward his goal. Each time he saw them together, Daniel collected more evidence. He took photos from a distance, capturing the intimate moments they thought were hidden from the world. He waited patiently, keeping a record of each meeting, each betrayal. Amanda had no idea he was watching her every move, that Daniel was slowly building the case against her. Inside the house, Daniel became an expert at hiding his emotions. He spoke to Amanda as if nothing was wrong, but their conversations were short, their interactions limited. He spent more time in his home office, where he meticulously compiled the evidence. His cold demeanor didn't raise any alarms with Amanda, who believed her secret was safe. Little did she know, Daniel had access to everything: her phone, her emails, even the hidden corners of their life that she had tried to keep from him. In mid-June, Daniel hired a private investigator to ensure that nothing was left to chance. The investigator, a man Daniel found through discreet online searches, was thorough and professional. He followed Amanda on days when Daniel couldn't, capturing even more damning evidence: photographs of Amanda leaving Jake's house late at night, phone records showing long conversations between the two, and receipts from the motel they had met at on several occasions. The private investigator's report was detailed, leaving no doubt about the depth of Amanda's affair. By the end of June, Daniel had everything he needed. The evidence was overwhelming: a collection of texts, emails, photos, and videos that painted a clear picture of Amanda's infidelity. But Daniel wasn't satisfied with just collecting proof. He wanted more. He wanted the entire family to see the truth, to witness Amanda's betrayal the way he had. That was when he began working on the video. In his home office, late at night while Amanda slept in the next room, Daniel sat at his computer, piecing together the narrative of her affair. He started with the text messages, the ones filled with promises and confessions, messages that made Daniel sick to his stomach. He layered them over recordings of phone calls he had managed to obtain using software he had installed on Amanda's phone without her knowing. As her voice played back in his headphones, Daniel felt both detached and determined. It was like listening to a stranger. He included the photos: Amanda and Jake smiling at each other in the gym parking lot, standing too close during a training session, and the intimate moments they thought no one would ever see. He even managed to capture video footage of Amanda meeting Jake late at night, footage that left no room for doubt. The video became a detailed timeline of Amanda's betrayal, a damning expose that would leave her nowhere to hide. Daniel worked on the video for days, editing each piece with care, making sure the timeline was clear and devastating. He added background music, something subtle and haunting, to emphasize the gravity of what Amanda had done. Every detail was meticulously planned, every frame designed to evoke the same sense of betrayal that Daniel had felt when he first discovered the affair. The video was no longer just evidence, it was a weapon. A week before the family reunion, Daniel knew he was ready. He had set everything in motion. The video was saved on multiple devices, ready to be played at a moment's notice. He had even prepared a speech, an anniversary toast that would start like any other, filled with warm memories and sentiments, before turning into the reveal of Amanda's affair. The final step was the online post. After the video was shown at the reunion, Daniel planned to upload it online, ensuring that it spread far beyond just their family and friends. He created anonymous accounts on social media, ready to share the video with the world. Amanda's public shaming wouldn't end at the reunion. It would follow her everywhere, a permanent stain on her reputation. As the days crept closer to the reunion, Daniel's anticipation grew. He watched Amanda go through her days, still blissfully unaware that her life was about to come crashing down. The cold, controlled anger inside him had turned into something else, something more powerful. He didn't feel guilty or conflicted. All he felt was a deep sense of justice, a need to make sure Amanda paid for what she had done. By the end of June, Daniel had set everything into motion. There was no turning back now. The family reunion would be the moment of truth, the day when Amanda's secret life would be exposed for all to see. And when it was over, she would have no one to blame but herself. The warm July sun cast a golden glow over the Wrights' backyard as family and friends gathered for their annual reunion. The Wright home, known for its charm, had always been the perfect place for these events. Lush green grass, a large deck, and a beautiful backdrop of trees that made it feel secluded from the outside world. The scent of barbecue filled the air, and the sound of laughter echoed as relatives caught up with one another, swapping stories and jokes. Kids ran around, carefree, as Daniel and Amanda played the role of the perfect hosts. Amanda, oblivious to what was coming, was all smiles. Dressed in a summer dress that accentuated her fitness, she floated from one group to another, making sure everyone felt welcomed and cared for. Her laughter was bright, her joy seemingly genuine, and no one could have guessed that just beneath the surface lay a secret capable of tearing everything apart. For Daniel, the day was surreal. He moved through the motions like a man who had rehearsed every step. Outwardly, he was the attentive husband, laughing with relatives and playing with his children. But inside, his mind was entirely focused on what was about to happen. Every smile, every laugh felt like an act. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the backyard, Daniel knew it was time. The moment he had been planning for weeks was finally here. In the evening, just as everyone had gathered on the deck for the anniversary toast, a tradition the Wrights had kept for years, Daniel stood up. His heart pounded in his chest, but his face remained calm, collected. He had planned this moment to perfection, down to the last detail. His speech began like any other, heartfelt, warm, filled with memories of the life he and Amanda had built together. Amanda, seated in the center of their family and friends, looked at him with tears in her eyes, believing his words were meant to celebrate their love. But as Daniel continued, the tone shifted. Slowly, the smiles on Amanda's face began to fade, and a look of confusion crept in. The air around them felt heavy, charged with something no one else had noticed yet. Daniel's voice remained steady as he reached for the remote control he had kept hidden in his pocket. He pressed the button. The large TV screen in the living room flickered to life. At first there was silence. The screen was black, and for a moment it seemed like nothing would happen. But then the first message appeared. A series of explicit texts between Amanda and Jake. The screen transitioned to a photo, one of Amanda and Jake embracing, and the gasps from their guests filled the room. One by one, the affair unraveled before everyone's eyes, the timeline of betrayal playing out in real time. Amanda sat frozen, her face drained of color as the realization hit her. The video left nothing to the imagination: text messages, photos, videos of her and Jake at his gym, all meticulously pieced together by Daniel. The room, once filled with warmth and laughter, was now consumed by shock. No one moved, No one spoke. The weight of what was happening was too much to process. For Amanda, it was as if the ground beneath her had disappeared. The betrayal she had kept hidden for months was now on full display for everyone to see. As the video continued, Amanda's family watched in stunned silence. Friends who had known her for years stared in disbelief, their eyes wide with shock and confusion. The people she had once considered close, the same people who had gathered to celebrate their love, were now witnessing her downfall. Tears began streaming down Amanda's face, her hands trembling as she tried to make sense of what was happening. But there was no escaping it. The evidence was undeniable, laid bare for all to see. Daniel stood at the front of the room, watching her. His face remained emotionless, but inside he felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was the woman he had loved for 15 years, the mother of his children. And yet, here she was, exposed, humiliated. The plan he had spent weeks perfecting had come to fruition. There had been no shouting, no fighting. It was cold and controlled, just like he had intended. When the video finally ended, there was nothing but silence. The room felt heavy, suffocating. Amanda sat motionless, her once vibrant face now pale and tear-streaked. The family, still processing what they had seen, could not bring themselves to speak. It was as if the entire world had stopped, and all that remained was the weight of Amanda's betrayal. As the night wore on, the party that had started with so much joy dissolved into awkward silence. One by one, guests began to leave, unsure of what to say or how to comfort either of them. Amanda remained in the living room, still in shock, while Daniel moved through the house, wrapping up the last few details of his plan. The final step came quietly. Before leaving, Daniel calmly approached Amanda. He told her that he was leaving for a job-related vacation, a business trip that would take him out of town for 2 weeks. It was not a request. He made it clear that by the time he returned, he expected her to be gone. There would be no reconciliation, no more discussions. This was the end. Amanda, still overwhelmed by the humiliation and shame, could barely respond. She knew there was nothing left to save. Their marriage, their life together, had been irrevocably shattered, and now she was left to pick up the pieces of her public disgrace. Daniel left shortly after, walking out into the cool night air with a sense of finality. As he drove away, the house behind him shrinking in the distance, he felt a strange sense of peace. There had been no violence, no heated confrontation, just a cold, calculated moment of justice. His plan had been executed perfectly, and now the entire world knew the truth about Amanda's betrayal. As he drove farther from home, the feeling of satisfaction grew. He didn't look back. There was no need. Amanda's public disgrace would follow her for the rest of her life, and Daniel, finally free from the weight of her lies, could move forward. The cold silence of the night seemed fitting, a reflection of the quiet, controlled anger that had driven him for weeks. And in that silence, Daniel found his closure. This story ends with Amanda leaving town in disgrace, her once perfect life in ruins. Daniel, now free from the marriage, moves forward with his life, but not without the lingering scars of betrayal. The public nature of the expose ensures that Amanda's reputation is forever tarnished, and Daniel's calculated revenge becomes the stuff of local legend, a reminder of the dangers of betrayal. This is exactly like that one case where a wife exposed her husband's secret affair with her twin sister at a funeral. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our daily updates.